let's dive right in.
Oh
Ladies
yeah.
and gentlemen of the Heavy Metal History Podcast, I'm welcoming two members of Fórn. Is that how it's pronounced too?
Yeah.
We just say Ford. We don't get
Yeah,
complicated
Fórn.
anymore.
Yeah.
Just
Okay.
Yeah.
Ford.
Okay.
Yeah.
Uh, Ryan and we have Joey. Welcome to the podcast, guys.
Thank you so much, Dustin. Happy to
Thank
be
you for
here,
having
man.
us.
Yeah, man, I'm glad we could get this going. So the thing that I like to start off and start with you since you're first on my screen here. Tell me a little bit about your personal heavy metal history, those bands and records that you remember hearing, and even, stuff, because you're kind of like influenced with that on this record, both of you guys. Just stuff that you remember hearing that got you into the genre and why they were important to you.
Hmm. Is that for me
Cool.
or for Joey? I didn't hear which
Yeah,
one
for
you said.
Brian. Yeah, yeah. You
Hello,
were
I'm Brian.
first on my screen, so I'm gonna
Okay,
I'm gonna
got
start
it.
with you.
Alphabetical.
I
That
don't
works
know.
too.
It's kind of interesting. I mean, I grew up in punk, really. I was a punk and hardcore kid. I still am.
Yeah.
Playing in bands my entire life. Starting from when I was like in middle school, just like being in, punk bands. Did it for all through high school, still play music with a bunch of the people I grew up with. So it kind of just was more of like a local scene that kind of got me introduced to music, really. I mean, I'm from central New Jersey, where I was fortunate enough to be at 14, 15 years old. Like every band was coming through, able to go to like big festivals, Warped Tour, Skate and Surf Festival, all these like punk hardcore ish festivals that I was just fortunate enough to be around and be a part of, and then playing in bands and being a part of like a little scene that we created in our hometown. We ended up having touring bands coming through. And at like 15 years old, I'm like opening for decently big bands, some of whom I didn't know, many of whom I didn't know, and a lot that sucked. But I mean, it was cool that it was like, still being a part of that world. I think my most memorable show, which is still two bands I still listen to this day, which are like super outliers, but Ed Gein and Engineer from
Oh,
upstate New
hell
York
yeah.
came through central New Jersey. They played our little VFW hall in our hometown that like me and my friends booked shows at. And I just remember opening for them with like my metalcore band. And just that was the first time I was ever exposed to like a wall of cabs. They had each of them had four by 12s for bass and guitar, and they were all configured in a weird way, and they all both bands shared gear. So that was like the
Yeah.
first sonic assault I ever really felt and was a part of. And that probably shaped me in some way because I'm still in bands that play with like huge stacks and everything, big rigs. But that was like my first, just growing up like that is how I really got into music and everything. And then moved to Boston, which is how we started the band. I moved to Boston for college, and I was fortunate to work and do like a couple internships like within the music industry world at a couple hardcore labels and things like that. Got to know a bunch of people there. I mean, still playing in bands as well, going to shows all the time. And that just kind of shapes who I am really as a person. I don't know if that answered the question as to like metal of like
Yeah, yeah.
what got me into it, but it's kind of just like everything I've ever listened to, I still respect and listen to now. I still have all my CDs that I had in high school, like in my living room. I still mostly everything I've ever been into, I'm still into, and that's somehow shaped my worldview of music.
Feel the same
Oh
way,
yeah.
man. Like almost every single band that I grew up listening to, I'm still mostly into them, minus like, maybe one or two, but
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
man, it's just like being involved in it from such a young age because it just kind of never leaves you once you're in it that at that point. They say like some people grow out of it. Most
Yeah.
people I talk to, it's like if they were in it that young, they're just like they're just it doesn't leave you, man.
Yeah. It's who we are. It's like I'm for
Yeah.
better or for worse, like I'll play music until I die. I'll lose money in bands for the rest of my life, but I'll play music forever. If
Yeah.
I ever break even, that's cool. But like I'll do this shit until I die. I just
Yeah.
want a loud bass guitar. That's my whole goal.
Oh yeah. We are so aligned there.
Yeah. Yeah. That's why we're doing this band for over 10 years now,
Yeah.
bud.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah, big time for sure.
I have a kind of a funny story about it one Eddie or album or whatever. When I was when I was touring with the band that I worked for, the Red Chord, and sent out all the Ed Gein stuff on Black Market, where I lived, you could not find those CDs like at all. So like the whole tour, I was pestering him. I was like, dude, please, can I buy like an Ed Gein CD or like have it or whatever? And he was like, yeah, 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 we'll settle it at the end of the tour. And like I waited like a whole month, and finally he was like, oh yeah, man, here you go. You wanted
Oh,
this? And I was like,
sick.
oh, thank you
Oh,
so
that's
much,
awesome.
man. Because I
Nice.
fucking that band
Yeah.
too. They
They
were
were great.
awesome.
Yeah, I mean that's like also like another which can kind of lead into like Forn as we stand now, but Joey's from like the DC Baltimore area. I'm
Yeah.
from Central New Jersey. Both of those scenes had like huge, I don't know how to say it, like screamo, not like screamo, like good screamo, like scrams, like
Yeah,
that.
I know what you mean.
Good screamo.
Yeah, like, and that's the shit we were into when we were super young, both of us, and pretty much everybody in the band that's in Forn right now. And I still listen to Neil Perry all the time. I still listen to City of
Can
Caterpillar,
confirm
like
that. Yeah,
all
can
all
definitely
of that,
confirm that.
yeah.
Yeah.
Every band of that world like shaped us also. And now somehow, thanks to we're on Persistent Vision Records now, and Paul, the guy from that label, the owner of that label, with his past iteration of the label, put out a bunch of those records in that scene.
Yeah.
So somehow our sludge metal band, that is not really screamo at all, is somehow screamo adjacent now to like bands and people we grew up with, like icons of ours, which is super
Yeah,
cool.
very true actually.
Yeah,
It's very serendipitous
yeah.
in my respect because well, if you do you want me to like answer the same question that you asked Brian and
Yeah,
give you
yeah.
my
But
little
I want to hear
ammunition?
your perspective too on that.
Oh yeah, for sure. So Uh, I mean, like early for me, like I was an internet kid ever since AOL existed, which I'm sure like a lot of people our age in like the mid 30s was.
Yep.
And I somehow like just by nature was like on the AOL rock music message boards, and I was like a 10 like 11 at the time. So I'm talking about like bands like Linkin Park and 311 and stuff like that. That's like what I was Deftones actually was
Mhm.
probably the most like the band that still is super relative to my
100%.
of my life today.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, and I'm talking to what is surely gotta be, I don't know, older people, not people I shouldn't be talking to age wise, but they're listing bands like Opeth and Blind Guardian, and this is like Napster days, so
Yep.
it's super easy for me to just like go and search for that, and so like overnight. I think I like the one thing I downloaded, which was hilarious in retrospect, was Opeth did a Celtic Frost cover of Circle of Tyrants, like
Yeah.
really early on in their career. And so that was literally the first thing I downloaded and listened to. And so coming from like Deftones was like they scream in that. So like I wasn't I wasn't turned off from like screaming in music immediately, but that was like unreal to the sin to this like I felt like I had to hide that immediately from my mom because I was like, oh shit, this is like she's immediately gonna think I'm worshiping like the devil or something. But I was also so intrigued, so it just led me down a rabbit hole. And like my family, like my parents divorced early, so we did and it's like Maryland to Florida, so we did a
Oh
lot
wow.
of long drives to like commute back and forth because even back in the day we were like relatively low income, so we had to do driving as opposed to flying. So what my mom would do is like we'd go to like CD Depot, which is like a used CD store, or like Best Buy before anytime we do a drive like that, and she'd be like, all right, just pick out a couple of CDs. And like the first real long drive, I got Blackwater Park by Opeth, and then I got
Oh shit.
Night at the Opera by Blind Guardian, and then I got a Dream Theater record, but I don't remember which one it was, to be honest, at this point, because that band I stopped listening to a long time ago. But yeah, those two records are it like that was like okay, this makes sense to me. Like it was I was always interested in music before that, but this was like oh, I want to study this and learn this. And so and that cascaded into just wanting to like learn music to play music. And I got a drum set when I was 13 for my birthday, so I immediately like very very naively start trying to like learn that kind of stuff. And I was lucky enough to like get like swooped into like a local show that like somebody in my high school was playing, and through them met some people and started playing in a band with those people, like filling in on drums, and that just cascaded into learning like I mean, like a year later, like I'm going to shows of like people from like X Page 99 and uh like that entire scene pretty much like Darkest Hour, Majority Rule.
Oh hell yeah.
Uh I'm literally just like all those bands that shaped my life and my ethics about music growing up. And it was like more than just metal and screamo. It was like I went like the way that I met my I met my current other guitar player in Forn, Danny Boyd. He's my best like lifelong best friend pretty much. We did all the band stuff in high school together, like actual band.
Nice.
But we like got close because There was a show at this venue called the Black Cat, which is like a notorious huge DIY venue. Still exists to this day. In fact, I actually work there. Um, and Q and Not You, like a old dancey punk band from DC, huge around here. I mean, I think they've gotten bigger since since they have no longer stopped being a band.
I still listen
But
to Q and I do all the time.
yeah, same.
Yeah.
But they were playing their last show, and I was coming out of it, and I bumped into Danny and his dad, and I was like, "This!" My world exploded because like the only other person in my high school that I knew was doing this stuff consistently was like my brother, and then like a handful
Mhm.
of other people would like go to shows from people from our school, like were playing, um, and yeah, so like that was my like entrance into like the DIY music scene super early. I kind of like honestly leapfrogged a lot of like metal bands you would consider that would be like important to like knowing and like having a path into heavy metal, because I just like immediately jumped into like a slew of like local and underground bands that were only really relevant to the people that lived in my area at my specific time and have just faded into non-existence because of the internet. Honestly, because MySpace exploded into all their
Yeah.
music. That's where it
Jeez.
existed.
Yeah,
And
true. I
like,
can't even get my first band songs off MySpace. That's the only place they ever were. I can't even get
yeah,
them. Yeah.
my brother, who is a guitar player and a much better guitar player than me, admittedly, like we grew up playing in metal bands together, and like all of our music was on MySpace, and it just no longer exists. In fact,
Pure
I
volume.
yes, all
Yeah.
gone. So I just like, unfortunately, all that stuff doesn't exist. There's some like hilarious live videos that, for all you sleuths out there, if you want to really go
Oh, yeah.
digging, you could find videos of me playing drums when I'm like 15 in my house, for our like metalcore like darkest hour worship band called Norwood. But yeah,
So
that was like my path to metal, pretty much, was doing that.
I don't know how long like was your guys' stuff on MySpace until it like just completely like
Yeah,
before the hack, it was up there the whole time?
yeah, I remember like, I mean, so all that music exists to me like before 2000, like 10, 11. Like that was the
Mhm.
last kind of time I put anything out, when I was living in the DC area before I moved back. And up until like the hack, and whenever like MySpace just lost all of its shit, like I remember checking back on, like I would actively show people those websites, be like,
Yeah.
this is my old high school music, check it out. And like
See
if
if
I
it
would bring
still
it up,
loads. I tried that
yeah.
recently too. I like typed it in to see if it loaded, just like kept
Yeah,
buffering.
like
Like
it's so weird that the
wouldn't load.
URLs are still there, but
Yeah,
like
they're
the
there.
music
Yeah.
just doesn't exist. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Lots on
I might
server somewhere.
I might have some hope for you guys. Apparently, and I've checked this out. I haven't looked through everything, but apparently downloaded a bunch of stuff before the hack and put it all up on the Internet Archive. So
Okay.
Oh,
there's this whole giant
shit.
thing of called like MySpace Metal, and this person got as much as they could off there before the hack,
Oh shit.
and so it might still exist on there if you
I'm
guys
sure
go
anything
look.
I was involved in was not on the radar of
Yeah.
anyone who was
In
tracking
fact,
MySpace
I
metal. I
You
think I
never
had
know,
maybe like
man.
10
yeah.
fans, and maybe people listen
As
to
much
it.
as I would love to get my stuff, there's actually some other bands out there that'd be more
More
inclined.
important. Yeah.
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 If
Yeah,
you try to grab their like demos that existed on
Yeah.
MySpace that like sound better than like stuff they did later on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah. I looked through it one day and I was like, "Holy shit!" Like I forgot about it. And then there are other bands. There's like literally two songs on here that this band put up, and then like it's saved. So yeah, I don't know, man. It might be worth kind of checking it out, seeing if anything pops up on there.
I'm
You know,
gonna.
lost media kind of sucks, but
I'm
if
gonna
it's
try to
still out
salvage
there,
anything I can. The older I get, the
Yeah.
more I want to
yeah,
salvage from my past. People like a lot of people are like they want to shun anything they did when they were growing up, or like they're embarrassed of it. And it's embarrassing, but it
Yeah.
also like shapes you as a person. So I think it's important to try to hold on to all of that shit. Like I still have boxes of stickers from growing up of like bands and my own bands and shit I got for free at festivals and stuff. I still have
yeah.
all the ephemera. I like
Yeah.
collecting.
Brian's always giving me stickers every time
Yeah.
I see him.
I
Just
have so many. I am a
new and
collector
old.
of ephemera. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's so important,
Another
man.
thing too
That's
is like I think download like streaming, I don't know, download like Kazaa, LimeWire, that kind of shit. Napster, obviously. Like that's how I got into a lot of bands too, because 9 times out of 10 I download something and either didn't know what it was or it was mislabeled and it turned
Yeah.
out to be a totally different song by a different band
Hmm.
and I didn't know what it
yeah,
was. And then somehow I was able to figure out like what it was. And
Yeah.
that's how I got into certain bands that way.
yeah. That's I'm kind of in the same area as you guys. Like it was either going to buy a CD and it came with like a compilation disc,
Yes.
or it was downloading something random that like Oh, this is in the metal section. Let's check this out and see what it
Comps
is.
were comps were the way
Oh,
growing up, man. Like I
yeah.
found so many good bands on compilations just because I would maybe know one band on there, and you pick
Yeah.
it up, and it turns out to like become some of your favorite bands, you know.
Yeah, very
Yeah.
true.
Like you said, in the CD depot, like we had a store like that near me in Princeton, New Jersey. It was like Princeton Record Exchange, and it was just all used shit, used vinyl, used CDs, and we would just go there like after high school. We'd just drive there and spend hours digging through stuff, and I
Yeah.
would leave with like 10 CDs that I didn't really know maybe any of the bands, but like maybe I knew the label that they were on, so I was knew their association from other bands,
Yeah.
or it's just something that looked cool, like the art was cool, and I was like, this looks like something I might be into.
Yeah. I
And
mean,
usually it
I
was good. Usually it was good shit, you know.
and I
Yep.
can't. I know this is only going to be relevant to probably the handful of people that listen to this from my area, but and remember 20 years ago what the layout was. But CD Depot was also right next to Atomic Music, which is like in a very infamous used music store. I brought Brian to the new
Yeah.
location here, but like back in the day when I was a kid, that was like that. Like if you knew what to know, which was you don't go to Guitar Center, then you went to Atomic Music to get
Right.
stuff. And the amp that I still use in Forn is the amp that we got at Atomic Music from our very dear friend Sonny, who was just like helping a couple of 13-year-olds out, and he sold it to my brother for an absolute steal.
Yeah.
And I got drums that I used all the way up until I moved to Boston pretty much from there. So yeah, that place, I mean, like just going to that store and being like that was such a huge important coincidence in my life because that was how that was how like my mom was like, oh, these kids love music, let's see if we can get them interested in playing music.
Yeah.
And it really took pretty quickly there.
We're learning a lot about each other, Joey, on this podcast because we're so similar in so many ways. I still use like the same pedal board for Fórn. The pedal board that I use for bass for all my bands for Fórn, I built
Yeah.
that in high school, and
Mhm.
most of the pedals that
Oh,
live
wow.
on there are pedals I got when I was like 15 or 16.
Yeah.
Like I bought a bass overdrive pedal that I've since modded, and it's like a whole other thing now. But I bought that when I was like 15 because I heard bands with bassists that had like dirty bass, and I was like, how do I distort my bass tone? And I got a Boss bass overdrive pedal that I literally still use 20 years later, still using the same
Yeah.
pedal. So
Yeah.
yeah, man, it's funny that shit lives with you if you like if
It's
you
true. Yeah.
if you discover things at the right age and it has like some kind of memory to you or some core reason it still lives with you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It helps
I
that
like
the
the fact that
5150 is like,
technology is still you guys too, that it
yeah.
hasn't broken or like you're able to like you said, mod it in a way
Yeah.
lets you now as you
I mean,
evolve
the
in your
fucking
like
shit's always
play
everything's
style.
always broken. For Fórn, one thing about Fórn is something's always broken, but we usually fix it and make it work. But that's kind
yeah,
of
this is true.
part of the tone, I guess, is busted shit. So
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
I
It makes our performances seem
yeah,
real.
it wouldn't be a Fórn show if something didn't blow up.
Yeah.
Wait, you guys
Oh,
don't
God.
play to a backing track? Come on now.
We
No.
might still, maybe we'll
Yeah,
get good
it's-
enough soon. We're trying to get to that level now. We're trying to progress as musicians.
Yeah,
But
it's gonna be a little bit necessary soon, to be
Yeah.
honest.
yeah,
It is weird how much I see that now. It like on one hand I get it, you know, it's kind of like where the times are at, but on the other hand, you know, inauthentic that like you're not really playing that part right now. You're just mimicking the part.
I mean,
Yeah.
we're like we said, we're punk kids. We're all punk kids
Right.
that play metal somehow, and like that's kind of our ethos. We're still all DIY. We do everything ourselves for the most part. We are very involved in every aspect of everything that goes on with the band, and including like playing live. I just want to plug my shit in and go. And I think that's how we all kind of are in the band. We're just like, we have like
Yeah.
that punk ethos, but we bring it to the sludge metal, you know, genre that I guess we're in.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's very true that we all were born and bred and nurtured and raised like via those ethos for sure.
Yeah.
And I think it definitely shows in our approach to how we do music and our relationship with like other bands and stuff. So
And our slow, steady descent.
yes.
Slow. We're a very slow band in
We are
all
very,
aspects.
yeah, we're very slow always.
Yeah.
Well, one thing that I did want to touch on. So earlier in the year, you guys did like it was a re-recording of the first record, right, for the 10-year anniversary.
It was just a reissue, just
Reissue,
a
okay.
10th anniversary reissue. Nothing. We actually had intended, and we still do intend to take those masters and do something with them at some point for that first record, remix album or something like that, or just something we have in the works in our brains. We want to do something with that to like bring it to 2024, 25, and like have a remix, have some friends collaborate on it and stuff like that. But that was just an anniversary pressing because it happened to be somehow it was 10 years since we put that out, which is fucking nuts.
Yeah. Same.
And people still fuck with it, and people like that record a lot. So we felt like it was a good way to kind of tease our reemergence, because we also had this new record. Like, we were working on this new record for the last couple of years. We had recorded most of it like 2 years ago. So we kind of thought it would be cool to, working with Paul at Persistent Vision, we thought it would be cool to kind of tease our comeback and also celebrate 10-year anniversary of that with just a special edition of that record, and then put that out. And then that kind of led to where we are now, which is putting out the new record on Friday, which is also fucking crazy, because we've been working on this record for a good 2 or 3 years for sure, at least 3 years. Started during COVID for sure.
Yes.
Yeah, with the with the anniversary thing, I see two things. It's either bands either don't care that they're having like an anniversary, or they do something like you did where it's like, hey, we should get this back out there again because people still like it. They want to hear it. Maybe they've forgotten about it or moved on. But I think the way you guys did it, hey, we have a 10th anniversary, and like, oh, we're also working on new stuff. Like that's brilliant, man. Like I love having these at one time.
Yeah, some bands, I think, like, you hear especially in vinyl, I guess, in putting records out now. I mean, we know how it is like in the music industry with like major artists putting out like thousands of pressings of different things just so they can chart it or they can sell it. And as much as we would like to be a band that makes money and does shit like that, we don't do that. We put this out because we were like, this would be cool to fucking do. We're not going to make any money on it, but it's just something cool to do for like people who are actually into it.
It's also really cool to do in context of the same year of releasing a new record, especially on a new record that has a lot of new ideas, I'll just say, on it. But I hope, at least for me, because it's still like, as the person who's been writing throughout the career of this band and is the same person, albeit different in a bunch of ways as well, from when Departure came out 10 years ago. I've definitely grown a lot as a person. I hope that like the aspects that people feel are signature to whatever they see in that record is, like, I know what I feel is signature to that record, and I definitely feel like it carries over to the new stuff. But it's definitely cool to have like first and last thing out in the same year for people to just identify the journey of like what the sonic adventure.
I mean, we've grown a lot.
Band.
I mean, Joey, we barely knew each other when I joined Forn, which is just after
you put the
demo out, and we barely had known each other. And now it's 10 years later, and I think musically, like, we are very in line and very synced. So I think the new record kind of shows the progression of us like playing together and in a unit as well.
For sure. Yeah, definitely. It feels a lot more cohesive now, where like everything is. It feels a lot more naturally like succinct with our interests. Like everybody's interest seems like to have a part to play now, and like how things are shaped, which is really
and what
cool.
we listen to and what kind of music we're into personally. I think.
Yeah, I think we were.
This album is like a sign of that, of shit that actually we're very into personally. A lot of electronic music, a lot of industrial music, stuff like that.
Yeah, and I wouldn't say Departure was narrow in scope, but I would say that like that was my first record. For anybody who doesn't know this, by the way, that was the first record I ever played guitar on, like for anything, or ever like recorded really music that I had written. So I was very like starting the band and like starting the soundscape of the band, trying to like mold that. I was very like deliberately like narrow in my vision, so it was easier for me to like focus and like actually write things that were cohesive and that I was also capable of playing well. And same thing, and which was really funny to have against the other guitar player at the time, Brandon, because he was a virtuoso of sorts at every instrument, including drums and guitar. So, but he was really like, we had a really good chemistry together, because he knew how to write stuff that was just like, we both like, even though I was, and still am shit at guitar, I did study music and like writing, and I did my major in writing music in college with music history. So like I know how to write a song. So like we had good chemistry in like being able to like sonically and like harmonically match up on stuff. And then also he was very nice to me in terms of writing parts that were
he also taught you, he helped you grow,
Yes, very true.
He is now a music teacher, so I mean that is kind of his DNA.
Yeah, it is true. It is great. Yeah, and he is a really good teacher. Like
Yeah, yeah.
he definitely taught me a lot in those first few years. So he deserves a lot of credit for. I mean, we started the band together. So
Yeah.
though he did initially try out on drums,
Yeah,
and
I
he
think there was
was
a
so good at
rotating. You
drums
guys had a
too.
rotating drum lineup. I feel like before we settled.
Yeah. It was so annoying because he was so good at drums. And I was immediately like, dude, you gotta play drums. He's like, yeah, but I want to play guitar. And we had
Yeah,
another
yeah,
guitar player at the time. So, but it did end up working out and he ended up joining guitar before we even played our first show. So,
yeah.
I think it's important to have those people though, because it's that old saying of like iron sharpens iron. You're with somebody who's
oh,
better
yeah.
than you, and you're like, oh shit, well that's where I want to be. And then you get up
Yeah.
there, and then you meet other people who are like just above you, and you're like, well shit, now I want to go here. And having that drive to like want to be able to keep doing that is super important. You don't want to
Oh, yeah.
languish.
For sure. And like, so, I mean, I use this term like as just like for lack of a better term, but like musical soulmates. Like I feel like you meet
Mhm.
them when you're a creative type in people. And the only person that I really had felt that way before like moving to Boston doing Forn was like my brother. Because we grew up we learned our instruments at the same exact time and liked the same exact music and we're trying to play the same exact music together. So like we were constantly challenging each other to get better for the sake of like playing together so we could keep up with each other.
Yeah.
Um and I like all every time every project I played drums in after that, it always felt like I was I mean there were a couple exceptions, especially when I was playing with Danny, where it felt more like I had a lot more creative input, but I never wrote like anything leading up into those things, even though I was like studying and writing music. So it wasn't until really that I moved to Boston and then no one knew I played drums, so I could start playing guitar and stuff.
Secret.
Yeah, secret. And then I met Brandon, and I was like, okay, so he was kind of like the first person I met that like I like where like you could really just sit in a room and barely actually have to talk. You could just play back and forth at each other and like capture like what you were trying to get to. And so that was really cool. And that was probably the thing that helped me grew the most because it allowed me to just be comfortable like playing and writing and coming to ideas in front of other people as opposed to like even now like just by nature of the band since we're so isolated from each other and separated by distance like I am very used to just doing it all in my room by myself and not and not even conferring really until it's like ready to show people and stuff like that. But like I still like when we get together and we get to jam, it's very like it feels very much the same thing with like the current lineup of the band. So I'm very, it's something I've been able to like because of him, like it just has nurtured and taken root and fostered through all the iterations of the band, which is nice.
And now
It's good that
you play drums on a song on this upcoming record if you want to
That's
let
that
people out.
yeah, that's true.
nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's good that technology's come a long way now to where like people can be kind of spread out, still cohesively make music.
Yeah.
You're preaching to the choir of spread
Yeah,
out bands right now.
we pretty much right after Departure came out, we in fact even before it came out, we were already spread out in a sense. Like our singer moved to Oakland right before
Oh
that
wow.
record came out, and
Mhm.
we also lived in Boston, but Brian moved to New York maybe pretty shortly after.
Yeah.
Also, that record came out,
Yeah.
definitely before the next thing came out.
Yep. We're
Yeah,
all very spread out now in terms of the band. We're all in completely different time zones, which is it's
that's
very
very true.
interesting. And you're right that Dustin, that the internet and technology have helped us, or is this is the only way that we're still a band is because we barely ever see each other.
Mhm.
We only see each other when we have practice or we're rehearsing to play live or we're recording, which is, what we did. But we barely ever are in the same room together, all of us, but we talk pretty much constantly all
Every
day,
day.
every day.
Yeah.
And
Oh
it
wow.
was like that, especially during COVID too. I mean, I think that's kind of why we took a little bit of a hiatus in terms of playing live after our second record came out, Rites of Despair, and COVID, obviously every band took a break, every band went on
Yep.
hiatus, but we
Yeah.
still our group chat was popping off and still is popping off like all day, every day we were talking to
Yeah.
each other, all of us. So it's kind of like we weren't in the same room and we weren't like rehearsing or jamming, but we were still jamming. Like we were riffing ideas back and forth all the time. We were constantly talking about the band, still intending to do the band, but we all we're at a different place in our lives and had spread out and moved around. But thanks to technology, we were still able to do this thing and we're still
Yep.
able to meet. Yeah.
Yeah. Very
Yeah, it's
important.
good. I know this has been in like the press releases and stuff, but it's been 6 years since that last record.
Yeah.
Kind of take me through, you know, when that record came out versus like getting to this point where we're at now with like writing the record, because it's been a few years, and uh I know things have been crazy for everybody in the music industry, but like your guys' personal kind of like
We
experience
had,
with all that.
I mean, I'll say, Joe, you have more to say on like the
Yeah.
writing aspect of it, but
Yeah.
I think what happened, I mean, what happened with every band is we put out a full length record. We intended to tour on it. We started to tour on it a little bit. We did Europe. We did a European tour that was really good. And that was August, I think, of 2019. And we came back to the US. We played like a handful of shows. I was still living in New York at the time. Played like a New York show, a Boston show. And as we do with the band anyway, we kind of like we go in spurts. We always had, because Chris moved to the West Coast. I live on the West Coast now, so we all kind of like moved around. So we're always very calculated about trying to plot out what we can do.
Yeah.
When that record came out, we, like every other band, we had a bunch of tours in the works. We had a bunch of sick shows coming up. We had a bunch of plans to do a bunch of shit. And obviously COVID happened and everything got put on pause. I was already intending to move to California anyway, but I was still, thinking we can get a couple more things done before that move happened.
Yeah.
Didn't happen. Yeah, we weren't really able to like tour very heavily to support that record. And then we all kind of split. I moved to the West Coast. Chris is still on the West Coast. Joey eventually, within the last couple of years, moved back home to the DC area. So we all kind of split and we just like, it kind of fizzled out. But just like every other fucking band during COVID. So our story
Yeah.
is not anything special. It's like every
No.
every band had the same thing happen. So, we had a full night out. We wanted to tour on it more. We
Mhm.
weren't able to. And then we kind of just went into a little bit of a hiatus mode. But Joey was always writing songs, always writing riffs. We've always had a bunch of demos. We have demos all the time.
Yeah.
I think you
Still.
started writing this like during, like, pretty much right after Right to Despair, you started writing stuff. And I think that those became concrete song ideas like 3 or 4 years ago. And then we
Mhm.
Oh
started
wow.
rehearsing them and getting together and trying to like work them out. And then I think when you're in a band, as we've seen with every band I've ever been in, you book the fucking studio time, whether you're ready or not. And that's
Yeah.
like your end goal. And you're like, all right, we have to get this shit done. We have to get these songs done so we
Yeah.
can go to the studio and record them. And that kind of like kicks your ass into gear to actually like focusing on it.
Yeah. Um, yeah, pretty much everything Brian said was right. Like, so I would say that like after Rights came out and we did all of our touring for it, we had several things planned and that all fell
Yeah.
through. I definitely did have a lot of demos written for new material for us. And it was, I would say, and this depending on who's listening, this might piss people off. It was definitely more in lines with stuff after like Rights, a little bit more just like straight funeral doomy, with like heavier edges and stuff like that, and maybe
Mhm.
more like ethereal soft parts and stuff like that. But so a very unfortunate thing happened over COVID, which is I lost my father. And following that, I was going back and listening to a lot of like old demos, because I was already writing really sad music, so like
Right.
like listening to that and trying to like find the authenticity in that after having experienced the loss of like that caliber, like I don't know, some of that music felt very trite and a little bit pandering. If I mean, I don't, and I wouldn't really ever say that about my own work. I'm always proud of what I do, even if it's stuff I don't release. I don't usually finish stuff if I'm not into it.
Yeah.
But I definitely felt like we were like I wanted to do something different for this record, and I've been doing a lot of like just for lack of a better term, just like working with stuff that sounds like film scores, like doing a lot more just like composing, kind of getting back to what I was doing in college a little bit and finding myself wanting to like insert that into Forn in a way that
Oh
didn't
yeah.
feel like how every other doom band I did it before. It's just like, just string quartets that sound even more sad and melodic than the heavy guitars and melodies that they're already doing. So yeah, so like a lot of, I did pick apart the stuff that I didn't like before and pretty much cannibalized it to put into these new things and took it for a whole new spin. A lot of pieces kind of fell into place that really made it possible to happen. Like um so like asking Lane to join, and like Lane's been on the last two records and I've also collaborated with her outside of the band on like a bunch of different things. So like her and I have a really good repertoire with music. And as soon as she was able to kind of put her little imprint, I had already written most of the record and a lot of the electronic stuff and all the string stuff. But as soon as she put her imprint on, it was like a lot of the stuff started to come together in even more cohesive way than like I had even been able to imagine it before. So and that allowed me to add and edit and kind of adjust things in like a producer sense when we were going back through the record with all the parts added on. But yeah, like I drew a lot of different inspiration for this record, but like I like to think, at least harmonically speaking, and like when you're talking about melodies, that like it should still very much feel like a Fórn record. It hits,
Oh yeah.
I think it hits heavier than any of our other records, to be honest. Like, and especially the sadder, more emotive parts, I feel like really are crushing, and that's always what I'm going for. That's like that is the stuff that appeals to me about this music, is how raw and like how much I can invoke, just at least for me, when I go back and listen to it, I can feel what I was feeling when I was writing it, and that's the most important part about music to me, is like as long as I can it like invoke that feeling, I feel like I nailed it, and so hopefully it translates. But for me, I think I nailed it for sure.
Yeah, I think in a way it sounds like it was kind of a blessing in disguise having all this time. You had this started with, and unfortunately had also sorry for your loss, man. I
Thank you.
can't even
Thank you.
imagine uh dealing with that, but taking that grief and putting it into something artistic and reworking everything you had, I feel like that is way more authentic than what maybe what you had at first is how you were feeling, but changing it to how you were feeling at that time makes so much more sense.
Thank you.
And having all that time to be able to like dissect all that stuff and go through it and be like, you know what, I'm not feeling this. Let's change it to this, how I'm feeling now.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, in the long run, the shaped everything now is awesome. I mean,
Thank you.
the things that you've added to it as interesting as it would be to hear, like, how it started out. The end product is always the thing that matters. So yeah, it's cool that and it wasn't rushed, but it's unfortunate that all the circumstances that led up to having that time
Yeah.
into it.
And there was a
You
lot
know,
of other stuff that led up to it too. That was like unfortunately we our drummer at the time, like life circumstances overtook him, so he wasn't able to perform on the record,
Yeah.
and we had already booked the time, and so we kind of had to what's the word, rush at the last minute to figure out who we were going to do the record with. So initially it was literally going to be me on all the drum tracks
oh
doing
wow.
it, but I was also anticipating recording the majority of the guitar tracks and having to also get all the electronics and the strings translated live as well. So we actually, I share a practice space and a house with, I don't know if you're familiar with the band Ilsa. They're
Yeah.
from here in DC. So the drummer, Joshy, is a good friend of mine who I've known for many years. It was so easy for me to be like, please help. Like,
Yeah.
please help and show up. I just
Yeah.
need you to learn two,
Yeah.
albeit very long, but only two songs.
Yeah. Two
Yeah.
songs that are total of 20 minutes, but yeah.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
please bear with me. I promise it's easy. And he did. He just
You
fucking nailed
crushed it.
it so
Yeah,
hard
we
out
got
of the
together, I
park.
think, only like 2 times with him before we recorded it. And
Yeah,
Oh
I did a
wow.
couple of
we
times
did,
on my
yeah.
own with him too, but yeah, just like in terms of a full band practicing with him, which is like, that's typically how you get comfortable learning a song.
Yeah, true.
And
Yeah.
he was doing it with like just practice on his own and practicing with me. So
Yeah.
it was great. He really,
Major thanks to Josh
yeah,
because
major thanks to Sashi. Major thanks to Orion too, who showed up to do
yeah,
some vocal stuff as well from that band. Ilsa's just been great friends and great supporters of us
and they
forever. So,
fucking rock.
and they do
Yeah.
fucking rock. I get to listen to them at least once a week,
So
every
your
time.
walls
Yeah,
shake
I
once a
love
week.
them so
Yeah.
much.
Never seen more gear. I want to shout out
Yeah,
to
it's
never
true.
seen
Yeah,
more gear in a practice space. I
shouts
thought
out
we
to
had
the
a lot of
gear.
fucking gear, but
Yeah,
goddamn, dude, you got there's so much stuff.
they do be gearing. They do
They
be
do be
gearing.
gearing. I want to
Yeah.
say one thing though, real quick, that I was thinking too. I mean, in terms of this record, um, I think I think we all agree like this is definitely the most professional record we've ever done
Mhm.
musically.
Yeah.
I think it's also because all of us like are very fluid at our instruments now. We all continued to play music throughout COVID. Like I started another band. Chris, our singer, is in another band. Joey has been writing and doing and composing the whole time. Danny, our other guitarist, is in fucking
6
4 bands.
other bands, yeah.
Andrew,
Something like that.
our current drummer now, our live new drummer, he is in fucking a million bands, and everyone's prolific at their instrument. I think
And not to mention
COVID
Lane.
and Lane, I mean, does more than
Holy shit.
the busiest woman in music ever.
Yeah, generational
Yeah.
talent.
I think that like COVID, everyone had their little COVID pet projects, you know, where they start like a fucking sourdough starter, bread or something like that. And I think like for us, it was all music and like
Yeah.
I think I've never been better at playing bass than I am now. And I think that all of us musically are the most talented we've ever been in our instruments. So I think that this record is a direct result of that. Like
Yeah.
recording it, we were on, the songs are way more, you know, thought out, and there's a lot of different elements in all of them and a lot of sonic elements. And
Yeah.
yeah, I just think that it's honestly it's because of during COVID we all stayed active with our instruments, and that's
Yeah.
kind of what happened. Yeah.
It was very nice to just like draw influences directly into this record that we've all known that we've had for like 10
Yeah.
like a
Yeah.
lot of the influences on this record we knew that we had 10 years ago when we recorded Departure.
Yeah.
And like I said, Departure was a little bit more narrow and a debut that we were kind of trying to cut out for ourselves. And now I feel like we're really comfortable with the identity of our band, and I don't think we really need to hide anything because I feel, again, I don't feel like we've really changed all that much. I think we're bringing in things that we've always wanted to bring in, and it
Yeah,
feels
more sonic
comfortable.
elements.
Yeah.
Sure. I mean, we always talked about having an electronic element in the band. We've always
Yeah.
talked about having programmed things, an industrial. We always wanted to kind of have like an industrial element
Yeah.
to the
Oh
band
yeah.
too, with like down-tuned sludge metal. It was always our intention. We always talked about it for the whole history of the band being a band. And we kind of dabbled a little bit on Rights of Despair with like some of the interludes and some of the intro that Lane
And
is a feature on. Like
we
there's a lot of production on that as well. But this new record, Repercussions of the South, which we have to say the name at least once.
yeah,
This
sure.
is like the actual vision in whole, I would say.
Yeah. I feel like, and even going back to Departure, like we always, like, maybe not so much always electronically, but we always like doing like, investigating sounds. What's the word
Yeah,
I'm
yeah, yeah,
looking
yeah,
for?
yeah.
Yeah.
We're
Like
always
always fun. We're always doing weirdo shit in the studio
yeah,
to like add on to the record, like as interludes and stuff like that. And like we were always trying to push there, but it always felt weird because I don't know. There's sometimes like a certain expectation with the aesthetic and that like a lot of metal people take themselves very seriously and take the music they like very seriously,
Yeah.
and don't like to be pushed out of their boxes. And not, and to each their own. I'm not trying to make people like my band either, but like I would hope it's not a strike against us that we're trying something new, and like, and because I mean we feel it's more comfortable now than I think we've ever felt as a band, which is really great considering we're a million miles apart from each other.
yeah,
Never
yeah.
felt
Right.
closer.
That's true, buddy. I feel you
Yeah.
on that.
Yeah.
I think that I forgot. I just lost my train of thought when you said that, but yeah, we are a million miles away. Yeah,
Yeah.
but I think that like I mean you and I and everyone in the band, we just and me personally, like no matter what kind of band I'm playing, no matter what music I'm playing, I just want to put out shit that I want to listen to. I want
Right.
to put out
That's
music
yeah.
that I like,
Yeah.
and it might be like a cocky thing to do, but like I like listening to my own band, and I listen to Forn all the time because I think
Mhm.
that we're all super proud of the work, but it's also like music that I like, and I'm
Yeah.
just stoked that I'm able to put something out into the vast catalog of fucking music. There's so many bands, there's so much music out there, and it's just like I think it's very important to like respect and appreciate and own the music that you put out. You know, I'm not forcing it. We're not trying to get rich off this. We want to make music that we like.
Yeah. Definitely not
Yeah.
trying
You're
to get
not
rich off this.
trying to make a
Trying to
Satan
fucking
order.
break even though. I mean, that'd be sick.
Yeah, breaking even would be nice.
Yeah.
I think that experimentation like that's important, man. I mean, because you never know until you try it,
Yeah.
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
it may be something like, oh shit, this is what we've been looking for.
Yeah.
Like
Oh, there's a couple
it's what
deleted
we
tracks
wanna.
from those sessions. There's some shit we didn't
Really?
put on.
Yeah.
We were
Chester,
like,
yeah.
that sounds sick, and then we listened to it more like that's fucking stupid, and we took it
Yeah.
out. But you know,
Yeah. I think a good indication too that we were kind of on the right path is like we recorded with Kevin
Mhm.
Bernstein at Developing Nations, who's just I can't recommend him enough, and everything he's ever done is immaculate. Um
Is that in
But
DC where you're at, or where's he at?
he's in Baltimore actually.
Baltimore. Okay, cool.
Yeah, which is super close. It was
Yeah.
a super easy drive for me. Everybody else had to drive.
I just fucking flew there, but whatever. It was
Yeah,
fine for
yeah,
me.
yeah.
No big deal.
But like we were there, and you know, I believe you're wearing a Full of Hell shirt going on currently, and he had just tracked their new record, and they were doing a lot of like experimental stuff on their new record too.
Oh yeah.
And I had talked to the Inner Armor guys, and they were doing a lot of the common thread. I'll just say that like that came up when discussing like the stuff that all these bands were doing on the records. Nine Inch Nails just came up everywhere. So
Yep.
I think I think we're all in our Trent Reznor era
Yeah.
currently.
Nine Inch Nails,
Or I'm just forcing that narrative because
no,
everyone
the narrative is there,
Yes.
man. I think like Nine Inch Nails and Deftones have never been trending more, I think, now than they
Yeah,
ever were. But like
it's
the
very
TikTok
true.
generation of young kids fucks with Nine Inch Nails and Deftones
Yeah.
so hard that they have
Yeah.
like they've developed a second life now. So it's
That's true.
it's definitely on right now.
Yeah, I mean
But
those.
Incantation also another just like incredibly awesome experimental experience with their new record.
Yeah.
Sorry,
Yeah,
I
you
didn't
know,
mean to interrupt Justin.
no, something you mentioned too is like if you're making stuff that they want to listen to, it is a weird dichotomy that like, you know, sometimes I'll read interviews or watch or even talk to people where they're like, well, yeah, you know, we were trying to do what the fans want. And I'm like, well, sometimes the fans are wrong.
Oh yeah, often.
I mean, I honestly, I don't want to
do what people want all the time.
Yeah.
You're not
No,
gonna
I don't
make
want to. I don't
anything
want to
authentic.
talk any negativity towards a fan base, but
Of course, no, that's
I
not what I'm
think
getting
that
at either.
honestly, we're fucking shocked that we have fans, so we never think about that. We're just like, let's do the music that we like, and if
It's
people
very
like it, that's
true.
fucking awesome. What a blessing! But at the same time, I didn't even think anybody liked any of our music, so that's
Yeah.
you know, we're not
And
really to serve the fans as much as we appreciate and are so stoked that we have a fan base.
And it's
When-
so true too, and I'll put it to you distinctly, just because like I've been since, like I mentioned earlier in the podcast, like I've been doing this since I was like 11, 12 years old, like listening to this heavy music shit.
Yeah.
And I'm 35 now, so I've put in nearly a quarter century of just listening to nothing but the most brutal shit in life to existence. And I've kind of gotten to the point now where it's like if I want to listen to heavy music, I'm gonna write it, and I'm gonna write what I want to listen to, because typically what I want to listen to doesn't exist yet, because it only exists in my brain.
Yeah,
So
there's a lot going on up there in that brain.
There's a lot.
You got a lot in there. It's exciting.
Exactly.
When it comes out, it's very exciting.
Very exciting.
No, it's funny. I'm kind of biased. Usually when I do interviews, it's because it's bands that I like. So when I saw that email from Curran, immediately I was like, dude, I've been waiting for this record so long. Can I please get these guys on the podcast? He's like, yeah, give me a few days. I'll set it up. And I was like,
we've never done an interview. So
this is you literally are you
time,
bursted our cherry on this situation.
Yeah. We always, not intentionally, but also kind of intentionally, like we tried to be not really, a little secretive, or also just like kind of like let the music. I always had the point, like the band is a unit and the band is the band. The band is a thing. The people behind the band are, the band is the thing. It's not the people that are behind the band. We usually never like go out of our way to put our faces out there and like put comments out there. We try not to respond really at all. We kind of just let it go. I mean, fuck, there's no lyrics sheets on any of the records, like except for now. I mean, there's not even any lyric sheets on this one either. So I mean,
there's not.
we don't really do a lot of like forward facing things. We kind of, the band is a unit. I treat it kind of like an organization. It's this thing that exists, and it's this, it's not a personal thing. But I think with this record, it's obviously because the music is a lot more personal to us, and it's like we're very invested in it. I think now we're kind of just like, dude, I mean, if you want to talk to us about this record, that's fucking awesome, and we are glad to talk about it all day.
Yeah, I mean, you guys have put a lot of time and effort into it, so it's good to be like, yeah, here's how we did it, here's our story, and that's what people need to hear along with the music.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So I think, Brian, you mentioned this earlier, or maybe Joey, sorry, one of you mentioned it, that the song's kind of done for a couple years. So when did kind of start after everything was written?
So our first session was September of 2022.
Okay. Wow.
I
It's
booked
been a while.
Yeah, pretty much exactly 2 years from start to release, just like a little bit of change afterwards. But we booked the session. The songs were recorded, all the demos were sent out. Pretty much it was just like, all right, everybody, learn your parts, and then we're going to meet at the
Okay.
studio to record. Like we had mentioned, like I had practiced with Josh, the drummer, and Brian had come for a couple of practices
Yeah.
because pretty
You
much
came out
this.
here for like a little bit, like you came out
Oh
here
yeah,
for
I came out there
something that
once, and
summer,
yeah, yeah,
and
yeah,
we did a
exactly.
bunch of sessions together, just the two of us,
Yeah,
just fucking guitar and
yeah,
bass and practice space, just like going through the songs. I was
yeah,
Damn.
super convinced that one song did not make sense. It was not.
yeah.
It did not make sense to me at all. I was like, this
I
timing is
know, dude.
so fucking weird. And then it just clicked, and then I was like, oh, there
Yeah,
I go, I got
I
it.
was
What?
seething the whole time.
Yeah, it
No,
was sick. It was
no.
so sick. But yeah, we like, we got together in different elements of the band. You got together with Danny, like we all got together separately a bunch of times. We
Mhm.
all hit the studio kind of separately as well.
Yeah,
We
I was the
weren't
only
all
one that was
together in the
there.
studio at
Yeah,
any moment.
I was the only one that was there for every session of the studio situation.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess with
Um,
everybody living all over, it was it kind of a case of like just someone does their stuff and then just
Yeah.
go from
so
there.
Yeah, so like that first week was just me, Brian, and Joshy. I did
Okay.
the vast majority of the guitars. We did all of the bass, all of the drums and the percussion. And then I was able to get pretty much all the electronics and the strings
Damn.
done also while I was there. And then the next thing we did was have Chris come out and do his vocals. And then we did all that together. So when we had Orion came out, Lane was the only person who did all their stuff remotely. Um,
Okay.
they they are I can't say this enough, immensely talented, and pretty much what they sent over was immaculate and didn't require pretty much any touches other than us mixing it to sound and fit like with the aesthetic of what we were going for. um and so yeah, Chris came out, and then Danny came out for another session. We did some guitars with him, and
Mhm.
then the last few sessions were just me sitting in with Kevin doing mixing. And that all the mixing and all that concluded September of last year. And the
Okay.
masters were done, I think, right coming into this new year.
Mhm. Yeah.
And everything since then has just been getting our ducks in a row because we wanted to make sure that we played some shows before we put out the record. We wanted to also do something special for T-Doc since it was the 10-year anniversary, and
Yeah.
we wanted to make sure we had some separation between that and the new record coming out. And we wanted the new record to definitely come out this year and not make people wait any longer. And we
Yeah. Yeah.
definitely
Yeah.
didn't want to
True.
wait any longer. Like this record has been sitting in my brain for 3 years and been done for almost a whole, like more than a whole complete year now.
Yeah.
So, and I already have half a new record written,
Yeah.
so it won't be long before the next one either.
The disjointed recording sessions with different members of the band is not exactly new to us. It's kind of like
Right.
Yeah, it's pretty much
every
how we.
time we've recorded a record, it's
Yeah,
kind of been like that.
yeah,
Sometimes Chris had done his vocals at a different studio on the West Coast, and we
yeah.
shopped in. So it's kind of that's literally Fórn in a nutshell. Is everything is disjointed and we're all over the place, but we still make it work as a unit somehow.
Yeah.
When you're like in there, kind of like a nitpicker as far as like, okay, we need to make sure like this is exactly, or are you pretty much like we got it and you just let it go.
We've done this long enough to know when we got it. So
Yeah.
like
Okay.
there's no superfluous effort going in for nitpicking when I know things are going to be like no one's going to pick up on subtle like I can't even honestly this is probably the best performed record we've had too, so it's hard to even like point out a specific example, but if we're talking about old tracks, there's definitely like areas that I can know when we spliced in, like when we like did different takes and stuff like that where we had to
Hmm.
splice in just because I remember a problem part.
Yeah.
But on this one there's almost I can't even think. Yeah, again, in fact I can think the one thing I can think of is a mistake I made, so we're not going to talk about it. We're
I
just
didn't even
simply
know you
not
made
going
a
to talk
mistake.
about it.
That's some
Yeah,
news to me. I
and
didn't know you made a
it's
mistake.
fine. It's
Okay.
fine. It's there, and you have to really listen
Well,
to
now
really
I'm gonna
know.
study it. I'm gonna study this fucking record front to back and see what it is.
I'm surprised you have it already.
Yeah, it's funny to me that the average listener like is not gonna notice or like in things like down to like the performer is like, oh man, maybe that was just like slightly off, or this wasn't quite how it should have went in there. But I mean, I
It's
I
also
barely. notice stuff
It's
like
also
that
good
too.
when
I
you can
don't
tell
care.
when it's a human playing,
Yeah.
like
Right.
I
Yeah.
appreciate that. And I think metal is one of the more egregious genres where it's like sometimes it's really hard to tell if something's a machine or if it's
Yeah.
not. And while we do have a lot of machines on this record, they should be notable for being a machine and not
Yeah. Yeah. They should
trying
be
to.
credited as machines.
Yes,
Yeah.
they are
Yeah.
credited
Yeah.
as
Yeah.
thus,
Yeah.
and not other stuff.
Yeah.
Brian, what was the song you were talking about earlier that you said you couldn't quite get the timing on it? That you were like, "What is this?"
It happens to be the song that Joey plays drums on. If you
Yeah,
know.
yeah. Dreams of the
Dreams. The
Blood.
last song in the record is called "Dreams of the Blood."
Okay.
We'll announce it. There's a music video for it. That we did. We did a video for the first time ever in Forn history.
Oh, wow.
And it comes out it's the lead single for the record on Friday. So it's that
Sick.
song. So when you hear it, the time signature in the beginning is really fucking weird. And
not.
it just took me, my brain, I don't know why. It's not my first time. It's not my first rodeo. I've
That's
done
not
it
even
before.
weird.
It did not click in my brain for so long. And when we were rehearsing, Joey and I, it actually got so frustrating that we had to stop and go outside, and we like left. And then
It's true.
I
This
literally
is
don't
true.
know. Somehow it's just like I think I was actually like thinking about it in my head, not even like practicing or anything.
It was your friend
And it
that
just
showed
fucking
you.
clicked. It might have
Was
been
it?
one of my friends that was like
Yeah.
pointed out like the way it was, and then it made
Pretty
sense.
sure. Let's give credit to Mike. I'm pretty sure it was Mike.
All right, shout out Mike. Shout out Mike Kobayama.
We can't have a Ford interview, especially the first one ever,
Yeah.
and not at least mention Mike in
That's
some
true. He
form
is
of
like
fashion.
he is like the eighth Beatle of Forn. We have a
Yeah,
lot of
yeah.
the Beatles and the outliers
That's
of
true.
Forn that are very important to us, and he's one of them. But yeah, that song it like now it makes perfect sense, and now it's great. And playing it
Now it's great. Though,
now
you
it's
get
great.
it.
But yeah, it was that song. So you'll hear it. You know, the fans will hear it on Friday,
Yeah.
and it'll
For-
make sense. Hopefully, it makes sense to them.
For any of the musical literates in the chat that want to know what the huge thing that was causing a headache was that the song starts on the pickup of a measure, so it starts on
Yeah,
the
okay.
and of a 4 as opposed to starting right on the 1. But the part can sometimes feel like that first note is 1, and if you can't get over the fact that it's not.
Well, it was also. I mean, if we're really talking about like the
We gotta
studio.
rehash
The
this
practice. No, I'm saying I'm explaining why it was hard for me was because I'm trying to learn. You know, we're trying to learn these songs.
Yeah, there was no
unit
drums while we were
because
trying to
there's
learn
no
it ourselves.
drums. We are obviously all spread out. So Joey and I linked up together for the first time like 6, 8 months. I haven't seen Joey. We're like trying to learn these songs, and Joey's just showing me
It was
guitar riff, and I'm
Yeah.
playing bass, and I'm trying to figure it out. But there's no percussion. There's no, we're not playing to a track or anything. I'm just like
Yeah.
trying to figure it out. And
it was also
not
so
clicking.
it was so funny too because that was the song I had most recently finished writing and the one I
Yeah.
was the most familiar and ready to teach.
Yeah.
And immediately off the bat, Brian's like, "No, we're not learning this one."
I was like, this doesn't make sense. No. Off the
So I was
record.
like,
It's
all
off.
right,
It's out.
now I need to relearn the other song with you.
Yeah. No, I mean, it came out fucking sick, and I also think it's definitely like one of the most progressive. If we want to talk about the band, one of the most progressive songs that we have. It's definitely like there's all different genres mixed in together, and it's definitely like it's kind of fast. It's definitely chunky. It's kind of metalcore. There's like a bunch of sub drifts. There's a bunch of off time shit. It's definitely like one of the most progressive songs we've ever done as a band. So
it's definitely a
Work
nod
out.
towards what like the future of like other songs are gonna feel like for sure. And I think in the progression of the record, if you're listening to it front to back, it's like the song that definitely integrates all the elements of everything that's present on the record, the most cohesively.
And it's the album closer.
Yeah.
It's a good way to close out an album, have everything that's built up to it, and then just put it all in one.
It's all intentional. Everything we do is intentional, even if it seems like it might be an accident. It's always intentional. We intend to do all of it.
It's true.
I also talk about the album art. How did you guys decide on that? It's fucking dope.
So one of the main themes of this record is collaboration.
Yeah.
We have collaborators on this record. We have a bunch of friends that are on it. It's a collaboration of sonic elements that are like not shit we've done before. We have a lot of electronic thing. That's a collaboration. The title itself, Repercussions of the Self, I thought of because I was super hungover one day and I was like, this is my own fault. I did this to myself. It's a repercussion of my own actions. So it's like you can take it in the literal sense, like, it's a result of your own actions and you're responsible for your own doing. But also it's repercussions because there's a lot of electronic percussive elements in the album as well. So it's kind of like a double meaning for the title.
Yeah.
So the whole concept of the record is collaboration. You know, we always want to work with like, we have so many super talented friends of ours and peers that we work with on other things, and we wanted to like bring in a bunch of people to do it. And we always thought it would be super cool to do collaborative album artwork. So we've worked, the two artists are people we've worked with before. It's Alexander L. Brown from New Zealand. He's done artwork for us before. He's done t-shirt art and things like that for us before. We're huge fans of his art and his aesthetic. And then the other collaborative element is our friend Devin Toy. He goes by Rottweilen. He's a New York-based graphic designer, screen printer, jack of all trades, artist, super
Another
amazing musician. I was in a band with him called Voyager, VYGR. He was the singer. I played bass, metal, you know, space sludge metal band before Forn. He's one of my closest friends. He does all our merch. You know, we work together on so many different things. So we were like, who could we get that could do this together? And we tapped both of them. We could barely even explain what we wanted to do because it was so hard to like make sense of. But we wanted to basically have artwork that represents different elements of the record. Fórn, the classic like sludge, funeral doom, metal, heavy, you know, aesthetic imagery, and then like some crazy wild shit that represents the electronic aspect of the record. So it's two different pieces that are meant to live on their own individually and then come together in a collaborative form. And that's the album cover itself is the two pieces collaborative.
And they were done in concert too. Like the two artists were in contact the entire time, the whole way through the process. A lot of negative space left on Alexander's artwork was deliberate, so that way Devin could fill it in with his own stuff deliberately.
Oh wow.
So it was thought out throughout the whole time. We the one thing we weren't sure of was just like how exactly it was going to 100% look done and how exactly we wanted them to bleed, like whether we wanted it to be like a full transparent thing or like only where like the empty space was. But I think what we came up with was really cool. It is, I feel like, again, and this is not to throw shade at any of our peers or anything like that, but Doom has a pretty locked in aesthetic, and we had a pretty locked in aesthetic too. We've used the same artist for literally all of our album artwork up until this point.
For the full ones.
Yeah, shout out Cloven Hoof. He's an immersive talent. He's so incredible. But we did know that we wanted to break out of our shell going into this record and do something that felt different, and also just honestly kind of popped in the genre because
we wanted something loud, kind of. We wanted work to be bright. All of our other stuff is pretty muted. It's pretty doomy, you know, it's very gothic. This we wanted to be like, we wanted to have like a bright, loud album cover that is fucking crazy and kind of hard to digest, but we also wanted it to be an artwork in itself that you have to like analyze and you see the different elements side by side, you see them together. It's its own piece of art, the music, and then that on its own is a whole other thing. So yeah, that was the intention. I mean, we wanted to break out of our classic aesthetic that we've had and do something different. I mean, definitely people when they first started some people didn't get it and it was very confusing, which was our point. We wanted to have something that people were talking about and people were like weirded out about because we kind of wanted to make people disappointed. That's why we chose to put out Pact of Forgetting, the first single, the first song on the record.
Yeah.
We chose that song as the first single intentionally because we wanted to put something out that was way different than what people were expecting from hearing our own shit. Because we wanted to get people talking, and there were definitely some comments where people were fucking pissed. They're like, I can't believe Fórn has gone this way. Like, I'm so mad at this, like blah, blah, blah. And that's great because then we put out probably the heaviest song we've ever written as the second single. And it's like, no, we're still doing that shit too. Yeah. This record is a collaboration of all different things.
It's so funny to me, people's needs. I mean, I'm guilty of this myself sometimes, but I don't know. As I've gotten older, it's like, okay, let's give this a little bit more than 5 minutes. You know, let's listen to it a few more times. No, I don't like this.
Yeah, instant reaction. That's the internet stuff. Yeah, that's the internet age. Yeah, but we wanted to do all of these things that we've done because we wanted to get people talking about it because it's been, you know, we've done this band for 12 years, I think, and we wanted to show this is like a new direction and it's a new element and we've grown and we wanted to have people talking in good and bad because that's the best. I need, you know, if people feel a certain way about it, good or bad, that's our goal.
Yeah. For sure.
I love art in general, so anytime something is like symmetrically pleasing to me, I'm like, I fucking love this. Whatever this is.
Cool. Hell yeah.
So
You'll see too when
it
when like
immediately caught my eye. I was like, damn, this
it's
is
it.
fucking good album art.
Thank
Thank you
you.
very
That's
much.
I'm
Thank you.
glad to hear
That's
that. It definitely it was
yeah.
we had a lot of conversations about it. We were kind of like not sure if it was going to work,
Yeah.
but when we saw the final product of both of them together, like this is fucking sick. So
Yeah.
we knew we did the right thing. And the vinyl itself, the insert, it will have both elements on their own side by side, so you can compare
that's
all
sick.
three images. So you'll see it, when the front, and then you'll see the other two pieces on their own, and you can kind of see how it layers in.
Yeah.
Damn.
And you can expect some merch that kind of does the same thing too.
Yeah, we got some new merch coming. Yep.
Oh, really? Oh, okay. So it's gonna be with
Yeah.
like the album cover and everything?
Sort of. It's the same
Sort of.
kind of aesthetic.
Okay.
It's using some elements from their art and then some other things, but we have a whole
Nice.
plan for Fórn has always got plans.
We're always scheming.
We're always
up to
scheming,
something.
plotting
Yeah.
and scheming. Yeah.
Well, hey, at least this time, hopefully another COVID doesn't hit and you can actually carry them to
Yeah.
fruition.
Yeah.
That is the
Yeah.
goal. I mean, we're trying to play as much as we can. I mean, as a band, it is difficult because we all live in different parts of the world. We
Yeah.
all have
Yes.
jobs. We're all adults in our mid-30s now. I mean, it's difficult to do it, but we always, we want to play as much as possible. We intend to.
Yeah, it's definitely what we're trying to do going into next year is
Yeah.
I mean, we have a whole new thing to show people what we sound like live, and we got to do a little bit of that earlier this year when we played shows with Lane on the West Coast, and that was incredibly validating as a live experience because I mean, we can you can theorize about how this stuff is going to feel and sound live all day, and it's only existed in recording up until we were able to realize that a couple of months ago. So I'm super excited to be able to play some of the other stuff on this record live that we haven't gotten to do yet. And I mean, I don't want to get too ahead of ourselves, but the new stuff I'm writing is definitely going to be very, very cool too. I think people are really going to like it in terms of like actually bringing all these parts together in super cohesive and new ways.
Yeah, I was gonna ask about those shows. Like, how was it? How were the reactions to like the new stuff live and everything?
Good,
Really
very
good. Yeah.
really good.
Yeah.
We've played with Lane. Lane collaborated on the first song on Rites of Despair, the intro song. They're on it. So we've collaborated before, but this is the first record where the involvement is cohesive through the board. So playing live was sick because, I mean, it was 6 of us on stage, and it was kind of crazy.
And some of those stages were not meant
way.
for 6 people. So.
Yeah, no, smallest stages ever. People falling off, people on the floor. But it was cool because it was just kind of like I would look up and things would be going on, and I just like look back down and just be like, I'm just gonna focus on what's going on over here because there's so much chaos happening right now that it's every time I look up, some crazy shit was going on. I was like, all right,
look down for a minute, then you look up, and then Lane's all of a sudden on the bar across
Lane's across the room,
standing on top of the bar, singing and screaming. Very sick.
I love that.
Yeah, they really bring like a element to the live. I mean, other than just being immensely talented and their voice just really demanding attention, their presence also really, really demands your like full undivided attention. And we've definitely played shows before where we like had a nice silent room in between songs and it felt like everyone was listening. There are definitely a lot of instances when we played with Lane where, especially at like Cascadian, the Outside Fest, there was a lot of moments where it's like, oh shit, there's a lot of people here and they're really invested in what's happening, and that feels really good because typically when I'm performing live, I am in my own bubble and not thinking about anything else. So, but like again, she just kind of demands that attention even from the people in her own band when she's crushing it. So like I was able to like pull myself out and be like, oh, we are lucky to have this.
Like, what the fuck is going on?
And that's not to take credit away from Chris. Chris has done the very similar things to me. I've looked away and then, been in my own bubble. Then I look and then Chris is curled up in our bass drum, just like, going absolute ape. And I was like, all right, cool.
Yeah, exactly.
So, we're very fortunate to have 2 front people that are really, really, really good at like commanding attention and like putting on a show.
Yeah, it's important. It's kind of boring when the singer just kind of stands there, doesn't do much else.
Yeah,
to me,
I think also, I mean, too, like we are also much better at playing live now with this lineup and this period of the band. Like we're comfortable on stage, we're comfortable in big rooms, we're comfortable in small rooms. I'm comfortable fucking being up there, and I think that's because of as you play as a unit for so long, you guys get tighter. You get tighter and tighter with the people you're playing music with, and more comfortable. And it feels like you belong up there now. Like when I'm up there with the band, I'm like, this is where we all need to be right now.
Yeah.
Yeah. Everybody's meshing.
Yes.
Everybody's all like
Yeah.
cohesive.
Yep.
Joey, one thing I meant to ask you earlier, besides Atticus, what are some other like film? This is kind of way off topic, but like, what are
Mhm.
because you mentioned film scores and all that stuff. What are some other film scores or like composers that you are really like drawn to, as far as like your, I guess,
Uh,
this is
yeah.
stuff you enjoy.
The one shout out I definitely want to make sure I give credit to, who is probably just even above Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross, would be Cristobal Tapia de Veer,
Okay.
who's a Chilean musical composer, and I mean, he's done so many good things, but Utopia is where I found him, which is like an old UK thriller show,
Okay.
and his music in that is just seriously unlike anything. It is very British because he's not British, but it's very Brit popish, but like has a very I don't even know. It's really he draws a lot of influence from metal. He kind of has a very
Hmm.
similar background to like a lot of kids like us. They was just like grew up listening to extreme music, but then as he got older, just like drew in more heritage, like more roots from his heritage, and like tried to bring him in. He's done White Lotus, the TV show, both seasons of
Okay.
that. He's
For people I
done
think would know him from
yeah,
most now.
yeah, and that's definitely where people would be more familiar with him. But I would say his music is way more. I would go listen to literally any of his other film scores. They're seriously so incredible and very unique. His use of voicing and voices, like he manipulates them in such interesting ways, and his rhythmic use is like just out there, like so cool, very atmospheric, and like everything he does has is very well intentioned, and every piece matters, which is always something that I'm always very mindful of when making music. I think it's really easy to throw a lot of different things at the board and it sounds good and you're happy, but I'm very mindful of like every little piece that I'm putting into something, and every voice should have like its should have its space to shine. And
Yeah.
he's a very good example of a composer who does that. Beyond that, I mean, like John Williams, dude. Like
Yeah.
I could literally listen to a John Williams score and be happy, like a different one every day for the rest of my life. That dude was a fucking genius. Hans Zimmer is also incredible. I mean, there's no going wrong with either of those composers. But Trent and Cristobal are definitely, and Atticus. Atticus just did his own score actually for that show Shogun. I don't know if you're familiar with that. That
I
is
haven't
really,
started it,
really
but yeah, I've
oh,
seen it.
it's so good, and you can immediately tell
I've
it's
heard.
him. That's on it too. But yeah, those are pretty much what I listen to nonstop these days.
Nice. Yeah, I've always been more into the horror soundtracks
Oh
and
yeah, he's
composers myself personally, but
yeah
I I I do enjoy obviously John Williams. I mean, come on.
yeah
I think that fight scene and episode the composition and that is probably some of the best
yeah.
like Star Wars music outside of the OG stuff.
Yeah, and I won't get too nerdy, but his modular work in terms of just like moving between modes and keys is just like, dude, it's genius. I can't get over it sometimes. It's so good. Cristobal though has done a bunch of horror movies. I think the most recent one he did was that movie Smile that came out a couple
Oh,
of years ago.
shit. Yeah, yeah.
That one's you can listen to it. There's not. It's a lot of noise. I'll put it to you that way. A
Mhm.
lot of scary stuff going on. But he's definitely like, and he did another one too about like a little girl who was a vampire or a zombie maybe. I can't remember the name of it, but yeah,
Hmm.
just I mean, literally if you're interested, just search him up. I'll send you his Spotify
Yeah, I
playlist,
would
and
yeah,
it's great.
man, it's always funny because like some you don't really recognize people's names until you hear them more often. And you're like, oh wait, that's the guy that somebody told me about that did this thing.
Mhm.
Um, Especially in films because it's
Hmm.
the composers usually get buried in the
Oh
end
yeah, for
credits and
sure.
everything. Like
Yeah, it
John
wasn't even
Carpenter.
yeah, yeah. Oh, I mean, I saw John Carpenter live in Boston,
Oh, sick.
years
Him
and
and
years
his
ago at this
son.
point. Yeah, him and his son just
Yeah.
playing through all, like, literally all the hits, and
Oh
it was
man.
so sick. It's dude, like fucking, I don't know. He must have been in his 70s at the time, but I think he's definitely in his 80s now, and
Yeah,
he was
he's getting up
still
there.
vibrant on stage, man. He was still crushing it. I was very stoked on that show. It was a great time, and he's another like composer, like again, like where like it's super simple, but all the voices really matter and help build the atmosphere that he's going for. Nothing like Trent Reznor, actually probably a lot more like Trent Reznor than Cristobal, but yeah, it's very, very atmospheric stuff that I enjoy.
Yeah. Yeah, because you need that atmosphere, especially for horror films, I feel
Hmm.
like.
Oh yeah, for
And,
sure.
movies. Yeah.
Oh yeah,
That's kind of, I
I like,
mean, that's definitely a component of the band too. I mean,
yeah.
yeah.
talking
There's
about
definitely a
the band. I mean, we are somehow like some of our most streamed songs are like the atmospheric
yeah.
compositions, not like the metal, you know?
I won't
Yeah.
say what song it is on the new record, but there's definitely a song on the new record where the start of it came from me hearing a certain theme on the Rings of Power show and being like,
Hmm.
wait, I could do this better. And then the thing that I did better ended up just becoming a song on the record.
Oh,
Sick.
shit.
Yeah.
That's awesome, man. So I guess that's pretty much all I got. The record comes out this Friday.
Yep.
Yes, correct. This
Friday.
Yeah.
Friday.
Or-
Fuck yeah. Yeah, I guess anywhere anybody wants to follow, you can buy the record, find the record. Obviously, it'll be streaming, but
Yeah, it'll
buying
be
stuff
Yeah,
is
streaming.
important.
You can order it directly through Persistent Vision.
Okay,
Shout
cool.
out to Paul and thank you, Paul, for putting it out. We were trying to find a home for it, and he was quite literally the first person who reached out and wanted to put it out, and it ended up working out great because he's worked with many
he's
artists that we respect. He's super
yeah,
fucking awesome dude. And he's a direct reason of why we're like as active as we are again now, because he's
yeah,
been helping us the last year, supporting us and encouraging us to get back out there, which is great. And
yeah.
he just did an amazing festival in Richmond a couple weeks ago.
Oh, so
Dark Days,
good.
Bright Nights. It was the 100% the best show we've ever played. And it's just, yeah. So thank you, Paul. Shout out to Paul. You can get the record directly through Persistent Vision. You can stream it
Mhm.
on Friday on every and any platform you desire. Bandcamp. We are on Instagram, Forn Official. Our Bandcamp, forn.bandcamp.com. Persistent Visions Bandcamp. Yeah, it's going to be available worldwide.
Worldwide, baby. Thank you so much for
Yeah,
having us, Dustin, by the way.
Yeah, thank you very
yeah,
much.
It
dude.
was really great to
Brian,
chat.
Joey,
Yeah.
this was
There's
awesome, man. I'm
definitely
glad.
this is definitely cathartic. I mean, we've never done anything like this before, and it feels good
Yeah,
to like
Yeah.
get these things out that we think about and kind of even just Joey and I going back and forth
Yeah.
to like get it
Nice to
out.
just throw you in the
We
middle of the
land
two
on
of
things.
us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We land on certain things. We're like, oh yeah, that does make sense. So yeah,
Yeah.
thank you very much for the opportunity here.